Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel Code with Rajeshwari. In this channel, we are diving into some exciting iOS development topics. If you are looking to expand your knowledge of Swift programming or enhance your development skills, you have come to the right place. Let's get started. In today's video, we are going to discuss about Swift closures. Closures are incredibly powerful, and in this tutorial, we are going to break down different closure types in Swift and explain their importance and show how you use them in your code. Let's get started. So first of all, let's quickly review what a closure is. In Swift, closures are self-contained blocks of code that can be passed around and executed later. They are similar to functions, but they don't necessarily have names, and they can capture and store references to variables and constants from the surrounding context. This makes closures really powerful and flexible. Now let's explore the different types of closures in Swift. We'll go through the global functions and nested functions. Final one is closure expressions and more. So let's start. First, what is global functions? Global functions are defined at the global scope and they will not have captured any values. And nested functions are enclosed scope and this will capture the values from the surrounding context. And the anonymous closures. These will call inline definitions, lightweight, unnamed closures defined directly within the code. So this will capture and store the references to variables and constants from the surrounding context. Let's create a simple programming so that you'll get a better understanding of the closures. So let's talk about global functions, which are closures that have a name. These functions are defined at the global scope and don't capture values from the surrounding context. So here is an example of a global functions in Swift. I have declared the functions with name greet and passing a parameter as name as string and returning a string. As you can see, this is a named closure grid. It takes a name as a parameter and returns a greeting. You can call it like a regular function and it doesn't capture any external variables. So let's run and see how the output we'll be seeing in the console. When I run the line number 9, I should see the output as Rajeshwari P. And this is how we will be calling the global functions. And the second one is nested functions. Nested functions can be called as local closures. We have nested functions which are closures defined inside other functions. These closures can capture and access variables from their surrounding context. Let's see an example. I have declared a function outer function. Inside, I have declared a let constant with the name string as hello and declaring the inner function with the one parameter as name and returning a string value here. In this case, the inner function is a nested function inside outer function. It captures the greeting constant from the outer scope and uses it to create a personalized greeting message. So when I run this particular outer function, I should see that greeting. I'm just passing in the line number 18 inside an inner function. So this is how the nested function means the local closures will be called. Let's run and see how we'll be calling this outer function in the local closures. So I'm just trying to print the inner function value and I'm just passing my name here. When I try to pass, so it was showing me error because I have not written, I have written the value, but in the function, means in the inner function, I have not mentioned the written value, written data type here. So let's call this function like outer function. If I run this, so let's see how I will see the output. In the console, it was printed Hello Raji. So if you see line number 17, I have made an inner function and just printing the value of the greeting. Next, we have closure expressions. These closure expressions, we will be calling it as an anonymous closures. Which are anonymous closures? This doesn't have any names and are typically written inline, which makes them really handy for things like callbacks and event handling things. So here is an example of anonymous closures. I have declared a let constant here with the greet closure and passing a name as string and trying to get the output as a string. Means in the return function I'm just expecting the string, and inside return I'm printing hello, and whatever the value will be passed here, it should print that. And when I print this greet closure value, I just have to see what I'll be passing inside the closure expressions. As you can see, the greet closure is an anonymous closure. We will define it in line with the syntax of curly braces and parameters with the return type and then in. It's flexible and easy to use for small tasks like greeting someone. So whenever you wanted to create a simple syntaxes with a closure and you just wanted to pass around, so these closure expressions will be useful. So this is how we'll be creating a closure expressions. So these are the three types and we'll discuss more. Like the other thing is the trailing closures. We have trailing closures. If the closure is the last argument in a function, we can write it outside the function parenthesis for a cleaner and more readable code. This is called trailing closures. So the syntax, we'll see how we'll be writing it. Let me show you a simple example with function, just declaring a fetch data where I'll be having the completion callback and the void it should return, and inside the print statement, just printing a simple static message where it is a string, and I have to call this completion block here. When I try to fetch data within the parenthesis, I should see the print and data fetched string. I have to get it. So here notice how the closure is passed outside the parenthesis of the fetch data function. This is a common pattern when closures are large or when they are used as a callbacks. It's a neat way to keep the things in an organized way. And if you see when I run this line number 42, so there is some error I have seen and I have cleared it. And when I run this program, I should see the data fetched value in the console. Let's talk about capturing values in closure. Let's dive into one of the most powerful features of closures, which are capturing values. A closure can capture and store references to variables and constants from the surrounding context in which they are defined. Let me write a simple example of value capturing in action. Creating a function with the name make incrementer. So passing increment integer and trying to get output as an integer. So inside I'll just declare a variable. So trying to declare a variable with the name total is equals to 0. So since we are doing the code for incrementer, just trying to declare a variable with the 0 initially, let's write a code for increment value incrementer, and it should return an integer and inside curly braces. So let's create and increment the value of the total variable. Total plus equals to increment. So whatever the value I will be passing in the increment value, I should be passing here and incrementing the value of the total, and finally returning the total value. So this will be a enclosed let constant incrementer. So this is the way where we'll be writing to store the references. And when I run this, so let's create a let constant here. So here I'm just declaring a let constant with increment. Let's increment with 2 initially and see what the output we'll be seeing in the console. And trying to print the increment by 2 constant value so that we'll see the clear output of the particular function in the console. As you can see, the closure incrementer captures both total and increment count. Even though increment is passed as a parameter to the function, the closure retain access to it. Means this will be called across the multiple places. And just see what the problem is. And so here I have forgotten the parenthesis. Let's try to run this. And when I run this program, I should get the value of 2 is means the output for the first term I should see 2. So if I call that print statement again, means if I call that as in the twice, so I should see the output as 4. Let's wait for the result because it's taking some time. You see here in the line number 50C, I'm just printing the value of increment by 2. Let's run and see what the values will get it. By seeing the output in the console, for the line number 16, it will get printed 2, and the line number 17, it has to print 4 because if you pass these values in the closures, it will capture the values and store it in the reference type. So we'll discuss what is reference types and value types later. Now let's talk about escaping closures. By default, closures are non-escaping closures. If you wanted to have the escaping closures, you have to mention it with an escaping keyword. An escaping closure is a closure that outlives the scope of the function it was passed to. This is the common when dealing with asynchronous tasks like networking calls or event handling things. So mainly we will use these escaping closures when we make an asynchronous calls like making a network request, something like that. When a closure is marked as escaping, it can be called after the function has returned. Here is how you define an escaping closures. So in the line number 21, I have added a fetch data function with a completion handler by passing an escaping closures with, along with the string and returning the void function. So inside here, if you are handling network call, you just have to make sure that it must be an asynchronous call because we don't know when the call will get over. So that you just have to make that as in the background thread so that it will not have any problem while we run the things in the main thread. So we'll discuss all these things later. Now let's see how we call these escaping closures. So just trying to declare the fetch data and trying to call it here. So when I call this fetch data, just inside here I'm just passing the completion data. So data is equals to something like data fetched string. I have declared it, and I should see the value of the output will be data fetched. Since in the escaping closures, I just made the completion string as data fetched. So let's try to run this line number 29. So to capture a completion with so you have to make that as a sendable closure. So here let's try and check. Still the issue came. So even though the output was seen in the console, we have to make this as a sendable. So if you see in the line number 21, I just made that sendable keyword has been added. So here is the closure is marked with escaping because it's being called after the fetch data function has finished executing. Let's talk about auto closure. Finally, let's discuss what is auto closure. An auto closure is a closure that automatically captures an expression and evaluates it when the closure is actually called. For example, here is how you can use an auto closure. Just creating a function with a long if true with the condition as an auto closure boolean and just getting that as an output. If the condition is true, I'm just printing inside the if condition with the printable value as a condition is true. And when I pass this value and when I call this log if true, so let's pass the value of 5 and 3. 5 is less than 3. So the output condition is true. So in this case, the expression 5 less than 3 is captured as an auto closure. This condition isn't evaluated until the closure is actually executed. So let's try to run this. And since I have passed this argument as true, so it will go inside the if condition and we can see the output in the console as data fetched, which we have declared it as in print statement. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to watch more videos like this. And if you have any questions or ideas for future videos, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.